Welcome back to another episode of the Better Health Bookshelf. And this week we're exploring the brand new book, Built to Last. And I'm joined today by its author, David Amerland. David, welcome.
Mike, I'm thrilled to be here. I can't wait for the conversation to start.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this. We had to reschedule once, but and the fact that you're actually halfway around the world, or maybe a third of the way around the world. Where are you today?
I'm in Greece at the moment. I'll be here until the end of September.
Very good. Very good. Well, I appreciate it. I know it's late. It's getting kind of late your time. So, David, interesting background that's relevant to our conversation today. But I'd like you to share a bit of your background that my listeners would find interesting, and more importantly, give it some context to what we're going to be discussing today.
Okay, yeah. I mean, where to start, right? I mean, every time I have to explain myself, I'm always different in different contexts. And now I've got to bring everything together. So, big story, telling it in a very short way. I started training physically when I was 13 with martial arts. I hold a black belt in 3 different martial arts styles. I'm a certified Taekwondo instructor. I'm a second degree black belt in Taekwondo, in one of the styles of Taekwondo. I've trained all my life. I'm 60 now, so it's like 47 years of training. And I never really wanted to write a book about fitness because that's what I did for me in order to decompress. It's my safe space. And this sort of came about as a natural progression of all the other things I do. And I'm a chemical engineer by training. I've written books on search and marketing and branding and online behavior and decision-making and intentionality, and now fitness. And there's a connective thread to all these things. And the connective thread is us, is human behavior. Why do we do some things in certain contexts? Why don't we do some things which we should be doing and do things which we shouldn't? And this is always fascinating to me. So when I sort of try and pry the layers of that through my writing and through my research and through my analysis and through the science, which I bring in from all the different studies, I begin to see part of our operating system, and that fascinates me. And then I apply that to myself, obviously, first. And then I sort of share it with my readers, hoping that they too can begin to operate better, become better people, better human beings in the context of their activity.
Yeah, I noticed when I was researching you, if you will, I saw all your other books, and then I realized, and this is a brand new book, just a month or so old at the time we were recording this, this is different. Now, David, there are, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of fitness books, right? Built to Last. What makes Built to Last a book that my listeners should know about, and more importantly, buy and read?
It's an excellent question. Okay, first of all, it's not prescriptive. You buy a book usually about fitness, it tells you need to do this, you need to do that, you shouldn't be doing this. These are the things you should be following for a very specific outcome. And here's the thing, this is what we know now scientifically. Each of us at an individual level, sometimes at a cellular level, is unique. We have unique backgrounds, unique sort of trauma in our life, which is reflected in the cellular activity of our biological makeup. We have different psychological makeup, we have different experiences, different expectations. Our worldview is slightly different from person to person. So to ask someone to say, okay, what should I be doing to get fit? And to give them a fitness plan is, it's not only hugely ambitious, but also it negates their reality, which is why most people can't actually stick to it. We cannot try it. We're trying to fit into somebody else's idea of what we should be doing. And Built to Last tackles this from the other side. It says, what should you be doing to actually make fitness fit your life, meet your goals, meet your expectations, so that you make it easy to do for you, make it sustaining for you, so it actually helps you, but also make it sustainable, so you can do it for life. Because here's the truth about this. If we don't exercise consistently, especially as we age, then the benefits which we're going to get from exercise are going to be minimal. And we're just wasting time, really.
Well, in your own experience, and then, obviously working with others and just being that inquisitive mind that you are, why, it's like the $1 million question or the $1 billion question. Why is fitness challenging for so many people? And I want to make sure we're really focusing the conversation on someone like, you and I, we're very close in age. We've been active all our life, but a lot of people that are in their 50s, 60s and beyond, it's a challenge.
It is, absolutely. And I'm glad you asked this. And it's actually $1 trillion question, right? Every year we spend close to $1 trillion on fitness. We are swimming neck deep in information, advice, access to fitness podcasts, YouTube material, books, government programs, you name it, it's there. So accessibility is not a problem. We know from the figures that our willingness to access these things is not an issue either. Come January, we all swarm to the gyms, and by middle of February, about 55% are there, and by the middle of March, it's 35%, and by the end of April, we're down to 15%. So it's tragic. We know from the World Health Organization figures that the projection for 2050, which is just a quarter century from now, half the world's population is going to be overweight or clinically obese. So when we have this contradiction, we have access to this, we have the information, intellectually we know what we should be doing. We get anybody off the street and we say, you should exercise, you should watch your diet, you should watch your sleep, and they'll say, yeah, absolutely. Nobody's going to disagree with that. But we don't do it. This is where human behavior comes in. We are essentially driven by mechanisms which were designed to help us survive in a very different world. What we call exercise today is essentially a substitute for a lifestyle that was active, had us walking, running, digging, climbing, lifting every single day in order to get our food, run away from danger, get to some place we needed to get to. And those things kept us fit in our body and kept us healthy in our mind. We don't live in that world anymore. I work through a screen. My refrigerator is about 15 steps away. It's got 10 to 15,000 calories on any given day. So I don't have to really, think
You're
where
not
my food is
hunting.
going to come from. Yeah, exactly. I'm not doing any of those things. So the reticence we have when it comes to exercise, which is a stressor, comes from a mechanism that told us, you work hard all day and you just don't need to do anything extra. And we know this from anthropologists who have been embedded for 6 to 9 months in the very few hunter-gatherer tribes across the world, which are still isolated from civilization. And they do exactly that. They wake up in the morning, they have to walk a long distance, they have to dig for food, or they have to climb. They climb trees, climb rocks, lift things, hunt things. And then when they don't have to do those things, what do? Zero, absolutely nothing. They sit around. That's the body's preservation of energy, so we don't actually waste anything. You don't see any of those, and they're pretty fit. They're not muscular, not massively muscular, because that's an energetic cost to the body. So they're exactly suited to that environment, so they're in balance in terms of their energy output, energy input, and it's reflected in their behavior. So they have this mechanism, which we all have, which says, do you want to go there and lift that rock to become a little bit stronger? You say, no, I don't want to do that because it feels hard. We feel the same thing. I've been training all my life. I have, since the pandemic, I have a home gym. And that gym is like 15 steps away from where I usually work. So all I have to do is, close my laptop. I don't even have to change sometimes from wearing sort of tracksuit clothes, a sweatshirt. All I have to do is go to the gym and access one of the equipment or lift or hit the bug or whatever I want to do. And every time, just before I do that, at the back of my mind is this voice says, you're working hard, you have all this work which you're falling behind, emails are coming in, oh, what a stressful day it was, oh, it's late. Why don't you just do it twice as hard tomorrow, which we know it's not going to happen, right? Because it doesn't work that way. So if I feel that, and I've been training all my life, I totally understand how the average individual who is new to fitness, so he actually feels the stressor a lot more, is unwilling subconsciously to put their body through it. And there's a way around that, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be talking. And there are two ways around it. One is very easy, one is a little bit harder, and I'll explain both. The easy one is you say to yourself, okay, this is the bargain you make. Okay, I don't feel like exercising, but I'm gonna go and do something for 10 minutes. And this is what I use. I tell myself, you know what? Okay, maybe it'll be a dud, but let's go for 10 minutes. And if that's all I want to do, and I still feel like this in 10 minutes, I'm going to call it a day, go to bed, and then train tomorrow. But it never happens. After the 10-minute mark, I actually put another 50, 60 minutes. And the reason for that, and we know that now, is we know that when muscles work for a certain length of time, which is usually between 5 and 10 minutes, they actually produce very specific hormones which affect the serotonin and dopamine levels in our brain, which then affect how the reward system works, and then we feel good about it. And again, this is a survival mechanism. In the past, we'd have to run away from danger. If we run away from danger, we're giving it everything we have, and we're going to get tired. When we get tired, what usually happens is our brain sends a signal to our body, hey, stop, you're getting tired. But if we stop, we get eaten or we get killed. So then, there's that mechanism which says, okay, you've been running for 10 minutes, you're still not out of danger, but now it's not so bad. So essentially, that the activation of the reward system drives down the stressor we feel and the reticence to continue. It dampens down the fatigue we feel in that moment in time and allows us then like a second breath, a second wind to keep on going. So I use that, knowing the scientific basis of that, I use that every time. So it always works. I go there for 10 minutes knowing that, on the clock, I'm going to be there for 10 minutes. And if it's a dud, it is, right? And always do more.
Do you think that's, first of all, it's very interesting. I've never heard that. I'm sitting here like pondering as you're saying that. And, is that across the board, or is that someone just for yourself who's been a seasoned, lifelong enthusiast?
Everybody feels that.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. Yeah.
So if I hear you,
it's a natural response of muscles. Yeah.
So I just want to deconstruct that just a little bit, because that's really an encouraging word, especially as you age. And if fitness and movement is not something that you're doing now on a consistent basis, are you suggesting then that someone just gives it, like you said, let me move for 10 minutes and then see what happens after that 10 minutes?
Yeah, literally set up a stopwatch, 10 minutes, a 10-minute window. And it's guaranteed the moment you hit a 10-minute mark, and even before that for some people, it's just going to continue because you actually feel good now. You're feeling better about it.
So that's again, very interesting to me. Let's take one step back again though. Why is there that resistance for so many people? Why? I mean, you shared some insights to it, right? We know better. I know better. Every one of us knows better, whether it's not eating something or movement or whatever it might be. I'm still kind of dumbfounded, like why we do have those conversations with ourselves to say, I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to do it right now.
We always put it off, right? Okay, and I'm glad you said that. This is the second part now. This is how we solve the same reticence in a different way. And that's the harder part. And this addresses now the deeper question that you're actually asking. Why do we feel that way? We feel that way because we are disinclined to actually put ourselves through any kind of stress for which there's not an emotional reason. So if we intellectually, we know we're going to exercise. What is exercise? It's a stressor. It's going to make us tired. It's going to make us feel sore the next day. We're going to feel bad doing it because we're not very good at it just yet. All those things are negatives. Our brain is basically tallying all those things up, coming up with a negative sum, and we don't want to go through it. So how do we flip that? Well, here's the rub of this. Essentially, we need to change the emotional connection we have with what we do. And when do we exercise? Every single day. When we have had a health scare. When we have lost somebody close to us because they didn't look after themselves. When we have actually seen firsthand the ravages of time if we don't do something about it now. And that changes, flips the switch in our head, which is a calculus we make, which says, oh, this is a stressor. It's going to be energetically difficult. It's going to make you psychologically bad and not so good in the way you feel about yourself. You're going to have to learn new skills. It's going to perhaps physically be uncomfortable for you, and you have to go through it. All those things are true, and they have a value in that calculus. But if we are emotionally connected to the outcome we're actually seeking to achieve, and that outcome has a greater value for us, then the calculus dampens down the value we put on those stressors that we're expecting to meet, and we're then willing to go through it. So it comes down to an emotional connection. And this is the hard work. If we don't have a health scare in our life, which we shouldn't, right, before we start
Right.
exercising, if we don't lose somebody close to us because they didn't look after themselves, how do we create that emotional connection? And this is where, again, that age group, 50 to 60 now, we're beginning to get older. We need to understand that if we like the way we feel right now, we feel healthy, we feel capable, we feel that we can do pretty much anything we like, we enjoy life. We want to continue that life to be enjoyable. We don't want to get ill, we don't want to suffer, we don't want to feel like we're trapped inside our body. That work has to start now. So the value of what we feel now has to then be projected into the future. And in order to maintain that value of how we are now, we have to say, okay, this is the work we've got to do. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. Life won't be so enjoyable. We won't be so free to go anywhere with our body. We won't be able to go up and down stairs or play with our grandkids or actually wake up in the morning and feel good, feel glad to be alive.
Yeah, I love it. And I'd love to get your insight on this because as I've interviewed a couple folks that are our age and lifelong fitness enthusiasts. At 60 years old, my guess is you're not performing necessarily at the same level as you were when you were 20, right? Yet you probably still can remember when you were 20 and doing things that you're maybe, probably not doing today for whatever reason. But there is that mental side of things like, oh, I wish I could still do things like I did when I was 20. And because I can't, I feel like, and I've seen this with myself even, I can't lift like I used to. Therefore, you know what? I'm just not going to lift, like that kind of mindset versus really, and this is what's happened to me relatively recently in the last several months, just taking it down. Like I am not going to kill myself lifting anymore. I'm not going to try to lift these huge weights, et cetera, et cetera. Any insight on that, David?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, the approach of, saying, okay, I'm not going to go for broke. That's actually healthy. Okay. We don't need that. When we're younger, we're chasing a lot of things, we're working a lot of things out about who we are. We tend to use exercise as punishment in order to make ourselves feel that we're getting somewhere. And I know for myself that, I used to go through every training session every day of the week, right? And I'd wreck my body and, wake up the next morning and there'd be parts of me would be aching and I knew I'd have to go training and there'd be fresh parts aching from the second training session. And I'd be training 7 days a week. So by the time I get to the weekend, where I'd be doing my long distance running now and aerobic capacity development, I'd be glad for that because I couldn't, I wouldn't be able to lift weights or hit the bag or do sparring or anything else because I was aching. And that went on for 10 years while I was actually doing competitive martial arts. And that's crazy, right? It's nuts. Okay, that's emotional connection taken to the extreme for very bad reasons. I mean, it worked for me. I would not prescribe it. I wouldn't advise it. Okay, so we need to be sensible. We need to train every day. We don't need to ache, but we do need to work. Okay, so we need to have a clear idea what we're working for. If we take ourselves back to when we were 20, and you're walking down the street and you stumble, the chances of you actually falling are next to zero, right? Because why? Because your body is supple, your sense of balance is good, your muscles are great in order for you to recover your position of gravity. So as you overbalance, they bring you back, they don't let you drop, and your flexibility is good. That's what we need to train back for, again, in order to feel like that. So as we age, what do we need? We need stronger muscles. We know from studies that basically the aging body can still put on muscle, even at the age of 90. There was a study done in Japan where they took a 95-year-old, they made him run 100 meters, they timed him for that, they put him through a 3-year training course, so when he's 98, and he actually managed to improve his time at 100 meters. It's crazy. So you think, okay, if that can happen at 98, well, sure, it can happen between 50 and 60, but it has to happen differently. We can't go and punish our body because from a mitochondrial point of view, we have fewer engines in every cell, our recovery time is slower, every damage we take tends to be semi-permanent, takes a lot of work to recover from. So we can't sort of say, okay, I'm going to trust my body, it'll recover and I'll be stronger. So we have to structure it. And we have to structure it by creating that idea of how you want to be. If you want to lift, I don't know, 300-pound weight, and that's really important for you, sure, go for it, but structure it so it becomes feasible as opposed to, on day one, I'm going to lift 200 and day two, 250. That's not going to work. If it's important for you to have good balance, structure that so you can actually gain it. So every day you're practicing the skills you want. You want to have flexibility, work on that. You want to have good aerobic capacity, which we need for longevity, work on that. And make it a consistent pattern in your life where you actually build up a self that feels great. And that's actually what keeps you going.
Yeah. And that really is the basis of your book, right?
Yes, it is, absolutely, yeah. It's a blueprint for doing all those things.
I mean, it is first of all, what I went through the book, what I appreciated was it's an illustrated book, so I always appreciate that. And it's a very thorough, comprehensive, organic, if you will, look at, how to achieve, and how to be built to last. So totally there. So let's dive into the book a little bit more, David, and uncover some specifics that you'd want to share with my listeners. So, at a high level, who should read this book?
Essentially, anybody who's struggling with their fitness, and it doesn't matter what age you are at. So if you're struggling to actually maintain a fitness regime, if you are caught into this roller coaster where you do things, then you fall off the wagon and don't do anything for some period of time, then going back and doing things, if you're sort of yo-yoing in your diets and your weight is ballooning and then you're dropping down and you're punishing yourself, if you're in any of those situations, you definitely need to read this. And also it will help you as a side effect, a very welcome side effect, in understanding a little bit of who you are and why you do things. And this is key. I mean, when we talk to business people, what do we say? If you don't work out your who, then you don't know why your why is happening, so your business is blind. You don't know how to guide it, you don't know how to prioritize things, you don't know whether you have any values or what values to say you have. So you don't know how to do anything really in a meaningful way. The external situation, the external world just sort of takes you down this way, and at some point it's going to crush you and you'll never understand it. Okay, it's the same with fitness. If we don't know our who really, then our why is meaningless. When we do meaningless things, they don't actually have a lot of value for us. We drop them at the drop of a hat or the first difficulty. And life is difficult. I plan my life really carefully, and things happen. I have meetings that don't happen when they should, and they get postponed. I have crises with clients where they say, okay, I need this little project done, and the little project's going to take like a week of intensive work to get done. So I kind of build things into my structured training for those emergencies. So right now I'm in a very sort of nice spot in my life. I can train 2 hours a week, 2 hours a day. I train in the morning and I train in the evening, and the training is complementary. But if that weren't to happen, I have a fallback plan where I train for 20 minutes. And if I can't find 20 minutes, I have a plan for that as well. Before I hit the shower in the morning, knowing that my day is going to be wrecked training-wise, I'm going to do 50 push-ups, 50 squats for me. It takes about a couple of minutes, and I'm done. And this is what I've achieved. I hit pretty much all the targets in terms of training. I've got rid of the guilt. This is the important thing, where I beat myself up. Oh, you haven't trained. Oh, you're not good. Oh, your planning is terrible. You should be better than that. Which, this voice in the head, it's just silent now, because I feel, okay, I've done this. And I'm not going to stress about missing a day's training, because over the course of a year, it's nothing. So, but I've structured all those things, knowing that if I hadn't, I'm going to feel guilty. And when we feel guilty, toxicity rises in our body, toxicity rises in our mind, we're not as effective in a day, and we beat ourselves up needlessly, and then we perform really badly at everything. So it's good to actually have the kind of positive approach where we're kinder to ourselves, which most times we're not, especially when it comes to fitness.
Yeah. Well, I can't help but appreciate the metaphor of using business, because I was actually just working on a project today I always say, who's the who, right? I was really diving into a who for a client and trying to uncover some of the emotional reasons why that person would want that product that, that gentleman's trying to sell. I never thought about it, in the context of myself, and it really does make sense. I mean, it really does. And I think that go ahead.
We are feeling machines that think. We do things which we feel about, and then we're very good at applying logic to explain them. We're not thinking machines that feel. So because we're feeling machines, I think if we don't work out who really the emotional connection that drives us, then sure, we can do pretty much anything for a while, but because it really lacks true meaning for us, then we can't prioritize. Everything appears to be the same value. We can't regulate our own emotion in terms of what we are addressing and driving forward. And then we can't react adequately to all the pressures that come externally upon us. So it's a classic phrase. If you don't know where you're going, all roads will take you there. And that's true, because how are you going to pick? You pick any road. So we need to have that, especially in fitness and particularly in business, as you say.
And what do you think? I was just having this conversation recently with somebody that, as human nature, maybe it doesn't happen to you because you've done for so long so consistently, but a lot of people will, like you said, start on January. By April, most people aren't doing anything, but there is that reality. Even if it's a health scare, whatever it might be, there is that immediate need. But as time elongates and goes on, for whatever reason, we are designed to maybe forget about, they ate great for 3 months after that blood work. And then, month 4 rolls in and they're not eating as clean, and month 5. What is happening there, David? And any practical advice to try to stay that course?
Yeah, it's the energetic cost that actually wears us down. If we have a health scare, what do? We change everything. We change our way of life, the way we dress, the way we eat, the way we sleep. We change absolutely everything. And for a while, it feels like it's working. Mm-hmm. And then life, of course, gets messy, right? And messy life, essentially, what is it? It's an energy drain on our system. That's what it is. So now we have to manage everything we feel, we've done, put together, and guide it forward, trying to maintain it and deal with all the other things that have come on top of it. And the easiest thing for us to do, of course, is sort of drop some of the things we're doing because it's too much. And that's what happens. And then we drop some more, and then some more. And as we drop those things, we also begin to feel worse about it. And we don't acknowledge it to ourselves. So now we have an extra energetic load, which comes from perhaps feeling shame, or feeling that we are disappointing ourselves, or feeling actual toxicity in our body because we're not as healthy anymore, which impairs some of our function. Essentially, a good life is a life which has an accumulation of small decisions which are actually great for us. That's a good life. If we can actually make good decisions consistently, then our path through life is pretty good. Gotcha. Most of the times we don't. We make bad decisions and then we have to deal with the consequences, and then we have to try and patch things up and straighten ourselves back onto the straight and narrow. So we try to avoid all these things by making it everything as energetically easy as possible. And I'll give you an example. I have these discussions with friends, obviously. And I have a friend of mine, and he had a small health scare with his blood pressure. He told me, I need to get to training. He's a lawyer. He's got a high-powered job. His life is, his work schedule is not something he can actually program. He's done a 9-to-5 job. Depends on the cases he has, etc. So we had this really long discussion, and he agreed he needs to get fitter. So he told me, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go cycling. And I thought, okay, you need a bike, which you haven't got. You need gear, which you haven't got. You need to join some kind of club because you can't really do it on your own safely. You don't really know how to do it. So we had this kind of discussion. I said, maybe you should think about something else. And he told me, okay, I'm going to do tennis, something in tennis. Okay, he needs a partner. He needs the weather. He needs regular hours, which he hasn't got. So we are very optimistic. We have this temporal discounting mechanism in our head, which underestimates the difficulty of what we're going to face and overestimates on how we're going to do it. Mm-hmm. So I sort of, discussed all this with him in a very nice way because I didn't want to put him on the spot. And I said, maybe you should start small. What's the smallest thing you can do? And then eventually we agreed, okay, he's going to get an exercise bike at home. And he can do maybe 10, 15 minutes a day after lunch because it's the only time he actually has to himself. And he said, yeah, I'll do that. Great. And, because I told him, there's some guys in town which have opened a new sort of a supply place. Go to them, tell them I sent you. They'll give you just the right bike for you. And he still hasn't done it. 3 months later, okay? So, and I know why he hasn't done it, because he's never been to a place like that. So that now in his head is a big thing, right? It's a big step. He doesn't know how to address it. And this is evidence of how we perceive the energetic load upon us. This is why we don't stick to things. So in order for them to become effective for us, to become feasible, we need to lower the barrier. We need to think, what are the obstacles in the way? Do I need perhaps equipment? Have I got them? Can I get them? Have I got access to them? If we don't have them and we feel we need them, we'll say, okay, forget that. We don't have them. What can I do without equipment? Let's start that. Where can I train where it'll take 0 time, 0 clothes, 0 effort? Can I do it at home? If I do some body weight exercise at home, what are 5 exercises I can do in a 15-minute period? And actually in the book, I've got certain workouts which actually do just that. Okay, there are workouts you can do with body weight at home in your underwear if you want to, and it'll take 15 minutes. It needs no equipment and it'll still get the job done. So it's being smart. You know, we are really smart in most things, but that smartness works against us when we fail to acknowledge the fact that we feel reticent about doing some things, and then we find all these excuses which sound incredibly plausible. And we say, okay, this is really, you know, serious problems. But the thing is, how about we look at it in the other way? How we can say, okay, forget the things you don't have. Forget the things you will not have access to. Forget the things which are difficult to do because the complexity of your life is going to make them difficult to be done. Yep. So if we forget all those things, let's start small. What is it you can do that is entirely easy for you to do? It costs 0 in terms of time, effort, equipment, particular knowledge, and you can do every day for a while. And start there. And then it becomes easier. Then we get to the frame of mind where we actually feel empowered, feel in control, and then that builds and builds and builds, because then we say, okay, maybe I should start watching my diet a little bit. Maybe I should, you know, go for a run every now and then, or go for a walk outside for a couple of hours. But these are things which are the next step, which happens organically.
Well, David, first of all, I appreciate what I was just thinking here. This is like, you're like the fitness philosopher. I really do. And it's in your book, this way you're communicating right now. It's, you know, that's how you wrote this book, which I appreciate it. And it's quite profound as I'm sitting here listening to you. And honestly, my story is that I had a small scare, some blood work 4 or 5 years ago that didn't, you know, I was not watching what I was eating and yada, yada, yada. And, you know, the doctor right away wanted to put me on some medicines, which I'm, you know, I'm very, you know, I want to do my research and figure out a better way to do it, which I did. And I've shared this story on this podcast before. I live in an area it's good to walk, right? And I have a dog, and I wasn't like I was fat or over, you know, I just wasn't moving as much as I should. I said, well, I'm going to start walking. I used to walk with a buddy of mine years ago, and that guy used to walk every day, 6 miles a day, every day, rain, snow, it didn't matter. And I used to look in awe of him, like, how the heck do you walk 6 miles every day? And he worked. He would come home from work and walk. Long story short, I started walking, and I think it was 2021. I got my wife walking a couple months later with me. And in whatever it is now, 4 or 5 years, 4 years, I think I've missed 2 days of not hitting at least the 10,000, you know, which that mental thing I have to do. Yeah. But it's now, I can't even imagine not walking, which if you asked me a couple years ago, I would never think I had that personality, where it became literally a part of my life. And my wife and I walk together, we talk, and it's, to your point of everything you just shared, it was just that, you know, it's not a huge thing. We're not running marathons, but I'll tell you what, I know it's been good for us.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And the way you did it is actually, you organically, you worked it out for yourself.
Organically, okay. Absolutely, yeah.
So you've linked now the way you feel, which is good, to that part of your life which has that physical element, and now your brain, the reward system inside your brain is seeking that feel good mechanism, and this is what we know about walking. Like it's fascinating. You know, we can do everything. We can cycle, we can lift weights, punch bags, etc. But when we walk, there are additional benefits to blood oxygenation, improved cardiovascular system, and muscles, you know, becoming activated, and temperature rising inside them, and certain hormones being produced, etc. Now, all those things are common to exercise. So whatever you do, pretty much, you're going to get the same thing. But there's something in walking which you'll not get with other levels of exercise. And that comes back to our past. And this is not in the book because it was not necessary to put it in there. But this is what it is. We found through fMRI studies that if you walk, there's a greater synchronization between the critical thinking parts of your brain and the rest of your brain. It kind of clears your head. And you've sensed it yourself. When you walk, you have clear thinking. You think, it's amazing. You put it down to the fact that you're out there, you're taking deep breaths, etc. But it's not just that. You're walking, so the impact of your foot on the ground activates those parts of the brain which allow us to think critically, analytically, and bring in all this different knowledge. And this is why and there's a reason why we are actually feeling this. Because in our ancient past, 10,000 years ago, if we walked or if we ran, we're doing it either to avoid danger or to find food. So we are solving a problem. So the brain then has to actually kick in and be analytical enough for us to solve the problem and find the food we're looking for, either running or walking to get it, or evade the danger we're walking or running away from. And those of us who didn't make it, obviously, didn't make it and didn't pass on their genes. So now we're all locked into this kind of operating system that actually gets activated. But the bottom line on this for us today is that if we hit the ground outside and we just walk for a while, whatever problem we have in our head suddenly becomes clearer.
Yeah. Well,
and this is the reason.
So it's, again, you're being, now in this case, prophetic, because I'm actually interviewing the co-author of a brand new book next week called Born to Walk. One of the authors is Mark Sisson, who's very big in the prime of, very well-known author. This is a new book. He co-authored it. And it's a 300-page about walking, David, right? But it's actually much more than that. But he also started the book off by talking about some of the great philosophers and thinkers of our past, Emerson, etc., who would go out for walks to clear their head and just think. So exactly to your point.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Socrates, he had a peripatetic school, right? So as they, 2,500 years ago, as you were in his academy, discussing things like the existence of life and the meaning of life, you're actually doing it on the go. You're walking as you're discussing those things. And that's why they call it peripatetic school. They didn't sit around discussing things. They actually walked. But yeah, that's the reason behind that. Our brains work better.
You just gave me an idea for either a new podcast or a slightly different version of this one. Like, maybe I should be recording this as I'm walking.
You'll find that, if you do that, I'm pretty sure you'll find that you have, you'll reach a different perspective, which is not available to you right now.
Yeah. And when you think, that's, and not to go too far down this road of walking, but to do it right, to be in that sort of that zone 2 where we're not just walking, we're walking the dog, but we're walking, it's a fit walk. You should be able to have a conversation. So that would be also a good guideline. But listen, David, this has been very eye-opening. I really do appreciate the fact that we were able to finally connect. I know you have a gift for my listeners. Can you share what that is, where to get it?
Absolutely. Okay, exclusive to listeners of this podcast forever. So, it doesn't matter when you come across this podcast, you'll always be able to get my book on intentional living as either a PDF or an EPUB download. You have to go on my website. It's davidamerland.com/gift-intentional.
Very good. And we'll make sure we have the right URL. But that'll be in the show notes. David, how can my listeners learn more about you? Where's the best place to check out Built to Last and your other books? Because you've got quite the library you've written.
That's right, yeah. Okay, you can find me at davidamerland.com if you want to follow me. I put a lot of stuff out there. Everything I come across as insights, I share generously because I think, there's no point in keeping insights and ideas locked up. We can't test them. They're of no value. If they stay inside our head, they die inside our head. And I think, we always think with other people's brains, and writing is a technology, right? It allows us to basically listen to somebody else thinking inside our head and then take it further as we process it. So I put a little stuff out there. If you Google me, you'll find my social medias across the web. And again, I put a little stuff out there. Built to Last available pretty much everywhere books are sold and on online retailers like Amazon and Blackwell's in the UK and Barnes & Noble in the States.
Very good. Well, David, I appreciate it. Congratulations on this latest book, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love being here.